Hello and welcome to part 2 of this series. I'd recommend going back and checking out part 1 if you haven't already, where we discussed the creation of the galaxy, the Celestials, and the rise and fall of the Infinite Empire. But if you don't want to go and watch that video, then all you really need to know is that the fall of the Infinite Empire left a massive power vacuum, which soon led to a period of intense instability. In the Galactic East, the warrior-like Hutts began expanding from their homeworld, carving out a small empire which would last many millennia. Elsewhere in the Tion Cluster, the warlord known as Xers implemented the cronese sweeps, creating his own powerful empire known as the Kingdom of Cron. However, this Tionese Empire would really become a major player after the ascension of Xers' son, Xim, to the throne. Xim's first 10 years of rule were referred to as the expansionist period. This saw him conquering much of the Tion Cluster, including the small empire known as the Livian League in 25,000 BBY. Xim's empire encompassed thousands of worlds and stretched from the Ramada Void to the Maw. For the purposes of maintaining order, Xim developed a police state known as the Genoharadan and soon employed terror methods such as mass murders. In addition, he was a leader in the development of battle droids to aid in the reinforcement of his conventional forces. However, Xim's exploits would eventually bring him into conflict with the Hutt Empire, which was then the most powerful force in the galaxy. Disputes over the control of the Galactic Cluster had raged between them for quite some time. A Hutt settlement known as Kovari was annihilated by Xim in the year 25,102 BBY. In retribution, the Hutts destroyed the entire fleet of Xim in the First Battle of Vontor, which occurred shortly after. A second skirmish was fought at Vontor a short time later, but the outcome was uncertain. Eventually, this resulted in the Vodrons, Niktos, Clatonians, and Wiki agreeing to the Treaty of Vontor and the Hutts securing their skills of these species as mercenaries. In the Third Battle for Vontor, which took place in 25,100 BBY, Xim's forces were completely devastated, with his treasure ship, the Queen of Ranroon, being one of the few ships to escape the onslaught. However, Xim was apprehended and transported to Nalhutta, where he died as a prisoner of war. Shortly after the death of Xim the Despot, the Empire was rapidly brought to its knees by the Hutt invasions. New states were founded swiftly as a result of the war, such as the Jamanir Marches and the Honourable Union of Desphero and Tion. However, despite the loss of their ruler and defeat by the Hutts, the Tionese would continue to venture outwards, conquering the Kyrian reaches and growing in power once more. In the core worlds, the power vacuum led by the Rakatans similarly led to an age of conflict and strife. The Unification Wars, as they would come to be known, pitted many of the core worlds, the Jedi and the Bendu monks, against the so-called forces of evil. One such leader of these evil forces was known as Zacharin Minus, and was regarded by his enemies as ruthless and near invincible. Although he was eventually defeated, his legacy as a formidable general would live on for many millennia. After the conflict was concluded, the Republic ratified the Galactic Constitution in 25,053 BBY. During this time, humans and Duros re-engineered the Infinite Empire's force-based technologies to construct the first hyperdrive. Additionally, in honor of the Bendu monks who had fought for them, the Republic took their symbol as their own. With the Rakatan hyperdrive now reverse-engineered by the Corellians, the Republic began to expand at an unprecedented rate. The Permium trade route was founded, linking Ossus, Tion, and Coruscant. Around this time, the Jedi also reluctantly pledged themselves to the services of the Republic. The Corellian Run was also founded during these early years, ensuring the economic dominance of Corellia within the Republic. However, during this period, the Jedi were not the only followers of the Force, and there were many other sects that worshipped the Force in a different way, with some, such as the Dai Bendu monks, incorporating emotion into their teachings. Others focused upon more practical aspects of the living Force, learning how to dramatically increase crop yields and how to heal others using the Force. Some other groups studied midichlorians and the secrets of immortality, which of course the Jedi Order deeply frowned upon. One such group were known as the Followers of Palawar, which arose in order to keep the Jedi Order in check after their homeworld was destroyed in a war somehow involving the Jedi High Council, although the details are lost to history. This order developed a highly effective martial art known as Teres Kasai, specifically designed to combat the Jedi. Additionally, they developed a meditative technique that could halt aging. These Force practices garnered the attention of a respected Jedi Knight known as Xendor, who was highly questioning of the Jedi Council's increasingly singular view of the Force. He desired to learn from these new sects, and learn their Force techniques so that the Jedi could better serve the Force and the people of the galaxy. However, when he asked the Jedi if he could open an academy to study these sometimes darker aspects of the Force, he was unanimously rejected. Xendor quietly left the Order, settling on the world of Leto to start his academy without the blessing of the Jedi. This new academy caused great excitement within the Jedi Order and the other Force-wielding sects, and soon many would join Xendor in his quest to understand all aspects of the Force. Xendor's followers named themselves the Legions of Leto and would take on many of the traditions practiced by the ancient Jedi. However, the Jedi High Council viewed them as heretics and would grow resentful as a large portion of their own order left to join Xendor on Leto. The Jedi amassed an army to try and force the Legion of Leto to bend to their will. However, Xendor's followers would also militarize, and soon the two armies clashed. Who struck first has been lost to history, but in an attempt to prevent civilian bloodshed, Xendor confronted the Jedi on their fortress world of Ossus. The Jedi soon pushed the Legions of Leto away from Ossus and towards the civilized worlds of the core. It is believed this was an attempt to draw the Republic to the Jedi's side. Xendor would inform the Republic of the Jedi High Council's treachery, but they instead sided with the Jedi Order, branding Xendor as a warlord. The war would spill over into the Republic, and even Coruscant saw its fair share of the fighting. Eventually, Xendor was slain in battle, and his academy was sacked by the armies of the Jedi. His followers were hunted down and brutally murdered by the Jedi. Ironically, the Jedi were so fearful of Xendor's small deviation into the dark side, they were willing to commit mass murder in order to crush any dissent in their philosophy. However, while men of flesh and blood like Xendor can be killed, an idea never truly dies, and the actions by the Jedi during this period would go on to haunt the Jedi for millennia afterward. This first Great Schism was soon followed by another war, this time heavily involving the Republic and the Tionese. There was minimal resistance to the initial Tionese attack of the Permian trade route. Before the Republic could make a significant effort to build its own military, the Tionese captured Abion, Rosh, Lantilles, and Tiran. With a new weapon, pressure bombs, the Tionese were able to destroy Republic shipyards before bombing Coruscant itself. After the Tionese attack was thwarted, the shipyards at Corellia launched additional Republic vessels. Many trade routes were ravaged by a century of offensives and counteroffensives. The Republic eventually succeeded in pushing the Hutts to assault the frontier of the Tion Cluster, and ultimately, the Jedi also joined the war on the side of the Republic. The Tionese eventually became desperate, utilizing kamikaze tactics which shocked the citizens of the Republic core worlds. Now on a total war footing, the Republic decimated many Tionese worlds. Eventually, Decivro, one of the Tionese capitals, offered an unconditional surrender. However, in an act of spite, the Republic annihilated the planet's surface, seeking to make an example of the poor Decivronians. Despite the Republic's victory in the Tionese War, the core region saw centralized military as a threat to the Republic's stability, due to the army's zealous and brutal handling of the war effort. The standing military was shrunk down, and the majority of the Republic's armed forces were transferred to the local sector governments. The Jedi parted with the Republic after being horrified by Decivro's sterilization. However, the Order promised to protect the Republic's frontier from their stronghold near Tion, observing the cluster from fortress planets like Falan Minor. In this period of isolation from the Republic, the Force-rich world of Ilum was found in the unknown regions by the Jedi, becoming an important religious world for the Order. Now the sole superpower in the galaxy, the Republic expanded outwards faster than ever before, starting what was known as the Great Manifest Period. The Galactic Republic's Great Manifest Period started around 20,000 BBY. During this time, colonization and expansion had become institutionalized, with businesses and planets competing for resources and colonies. Corellia and Coruscant were able to grab the best positions along the hyperspace routes, causing animosity with the Alsalkans. Alsakan and Coruscant colonists battled ferociously for the new systems to occupy, while Corellia mainly asserted its claims south of the galactic center. The Republic's bureaucracy grew in tandem with its growth. With the expansion of Republic space, new sectors were formed and received representation in the Galactic Senate, making the governing body even larger. The founding of the Bureau of Ships and Services was also driven by the Republic's growth, as well as a surge in hyperspace travel and trade among its member worlds. This organization would become profoundly important in the coming millennia. The contrast between Coruscant and Alsakan became more pronounced as the Great Manifest period progressed. The Republic's rimward expansion mirrored the core's cultural and socio-political divisions. The people of Alsakan and its daughter colonies did not see the Republic as the pinnacle of accomplishment, nor did they identify themselves with the interstellar companies. The Alsakans supported and upheld a more aristocratic ideology, preferring less bureaucracy and more local or planetary autonomy. At the same time, Coruscant and its corporate political interests wanted to gain control of as much of the slice as possible. This part of the galaxy was split into two halves, an Alsakan-dominated northern half and a Coruscant-controlled southern half, dubbed the Exploitation Region. Coruscant's corporate giants moved further into the rimward systems, sabotaging Alsakan's colonial attempts to colonize the new planets. Many colonists were forced to flee after being expelled by the merchants of Coruscant. Alsakan's animosity towards Coruscanti rule, coupled with the perception that the Republic was too powerful and centralized, spurred a more aggressive colonization effort. Colonial operations on resource-rich planets were accompanied by Alsakan-led battleships, despite resistance from the interstellar corporations. As a consequence, merchant armed freighters engaged Alcasan ships in battle. Coruscant, ever supporting its business interests, declared war in 17,018 BBY. However, after numerous skirmishes and battles, the Bureau of Ships and Services threatened to deny access to the system of hyperspace beacons, ending the First Alsalkan conflict. But the tensions between these two factions within the Republic would continue and would erupt again 500 years later in the Second Alsalkan conflict. Despite raging for 700 years, no clear winner could be declared by the end of this war. Around the end of the Second Alsalkan conflict, an encounter with an ancient race occurred. Republic scouts exploring the Outer Rim first encountered star dragons on the planet Mercana. The scouts were terrified of these creatures. They were 50 meters long, could fly in space, and spewed atomic fire. The initial meeting was an absolute catastrophe, sparking a war between the Star Dragons and the Galactic Republic. The scouts made a rapid retreat back to Coruscant, but hundreds of Star Dragons pursued the scout ships across space, and when they reached the capital, they assaulted it. The Star Dragons wreaked havoc on the galactic city with their atomic fire. However, after realizing these creatures were sentient, a philosopher was able to converse with one of the Star Dragons. After this, the Chancellor was able to negotiate a peace and put an end to the Star Dragon War. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Hutt Empire was in complete turmoil. This eventually culminated in the Hutt Civil War, one of the most devastating conflicts in galactic history. The war's origin is unclear, but it quickly ripped across Hutt space, destroying the Hutt homeworld of Val and other prominent Hutt settlements. In the aftermath, the Hutts created the Council of Elders to keep clan disputes from exploding into open conflict, as well as developing a new ideology known as Khajidik. This ideology condemned open violence and territorial conquest as tactics employed by lower species. The Hutts would attempt to dominate one another as well as the Republic through shady economic means. The Hutt clans moved to Evakar, which they renamed now Hutta. The Council of Elders prevented any Hutt clan rivalry from ever spiraling out of control again. However, this would also give rise to the shady business practices employed by the Hutt cartels for the millennia afterward. As the Hutts reformed their culture and the Republic was fighting space dragons, many light years away in a neighbouring galaxy, unparalleled destruction was taking place. Two droid species known as the Silentium and the Abominal waged war across their galaxy, destroying all life caught in the middle. The Silentium were believers in order and symmetry, worshipping the numbers 5, 7, and 11. The Abominor, on the other hand, were chaotic and random, ravaging entire worlds in a bid to reproduce. The differences in philosophy between these two godlike droid species eventually came to a head, ravaging their entire galaxy. However, biological life would strike back. A force-rich world would soon become threatened by the droids' war. The species on this planet lived in symbiosis and harmony with the living planet and the Force. However, the threat of the droid war would force the sentient planet to gift them with powerful organic technology to confront the droid threat. This species was known as the Yuzong Vong, and they would eventually repel the two droid species from their galaxy. However, the war would take its toll on the species. They were no longer peaceful and at harmony with their planet. They had succumbed to the dark side and the fear of machinery. The Yuzong Vong used their organic weaponry to conquer their entire galaxy, purging all machines and enslaving or exterminating every other species. After they conquered the galaxy, the Vong soon turned on one another. The war that followed, known as the Kremlevian War, devastated their entire galaxy. The Vong's homeworld of Yuzong Ta would be destroyed in this conflict, maybe as a dying act of revenge by the planet, or maybe directly due to its destruction. The Yuzong Vong was stripped entirely of the Force. This caused great mental anguish among the Vong, and they soon began to worship several depraved deities as well as pain itself. With their connection to the Force gone and the galaxy utterly destroyed and lifeless, the Vong embarked on a journey across the void to the Star Wars galaxy, where they would remain for another 15,000 years. Back in the main galaxy, the Third Alsacan conflict began in 14,300 BBY. Raging for 500 years, little is known about this conflict, but it is known that the ancient city of Rupakar on Alsacan was destroyed during this time. For another few millennia, the history of the galaxy was characterized between the power struggle between Coruscant and the Alsacans. In this period, the 4th and 5th Alsacan conflicts began and raged on for hundreds of years. However, thousands of years of conflict, increasing bureaucracy, and corporate corruption had taken its toll on the stability of the Republic. This would give rise to the religious sect known as Pius Dea, a highly influential religion which would profoundly change the course of galactic history. The Pius Dea developed among humans on Coruscant. It developed with a plea for communities to stay incorruptible by worshipping a deity simply known as the Goddess. Contispex, a prominent Coruscant merchant, was a devout follower of the Pius Dea religion. In line with Pius Dea beliefs, he thought that the Republic was an irredeemably corrupt society, arguing in favour of its purification. Contispex became known for his anti-corruption stances, as well as his intolerance for anyone who did not share his high standards. However, with this desire for so-called purity also came intense xenophobia, leading to discrimination against non-human species within the Republic. After the impeachment and murder of the Chancellor, Contispex was elected Supreme Chancellor in 11,987 BBY on a platform of cleaning up the Galactic Senate. Around this time, Republic colonization was approaching Hutt space from other parts of the galaxy, leading to a series of territorial disputes and raids from Hutt-funded alien species. In response, Supreme Chancellor Contispex authorized the first of many crusades against competing alien species, justifying these invasions in the name of the Goddess. Contispex believed that alien-led anarchy awaited beyond the Rim, and they were carrying out the Goddess's command to bring it under human control. The prospect of riches also enticed the Pius Dea, leading them to pillage conquered planets with the goal of bringing back the treasure to Coruscant. Contispex also restructured the Republic's administration, appointing fellow Pius Dea followers to high military and political positions, whilst also expelling anyone who refused to convert. Within a generation, many of these previously elected roles had become hereditary, and many official responsibilities became ritualized manifestations of Pius Dea theology. Contispex stepped down as Chancellor in 11,947 BBY after a 40-year reign. However, he was replaced by his son, Contispex II, who began a dynastic line of succession. With the Republic Navy and Army fully at their disposal, the Pius Dea began 4 new crusades against Hutt space in 11,920 BBY, extending the Republic's boundaries as far as Nimban. After the third Pius Dea crusade, the Jedi Order withdrew from the Republic entirely, retiring to their academy planet of Ossus. But despite their official disapproval of the Pious Deer, the Jedi remained divided. The Jedi Council favoured neutrality, but some lower-ranking Jedi Knights began vigilante battles against the Pious Deer. Others took the exact opposite view, joining the Pious Deer and forming the Order of the Terrible Glare. With their power secure, Quantuspex and his successors attempted to cleanse the Republic itself of alien influence. Through witch hunts, non-human senators were imprisoned, and commissars were sent to military units to uncover heretics and apostates. Alien property was seized by the state, and the descendants of heretics were barred from military or political activity for 3 generations. All the while, the Crusades continued. The 7th, or Great Northern Crusade, fought against the Zabraks, while the Crusades of the Wilds saw the conquest of a swath of the Outer Rim in 11,791 BBY. However, many species and factions, both outside and inside the Republic, were enraged by the Pious Deer's religious fervour. Alsakan established covert communication channels with a number of alien species who had been persecuted by the Crusades, including the Duros and the Hearts. In response, the Pious Deer leadership started ever more extreme internal inquisitions to purge their ranks of apostates. However, this would greatly undermine the stability of the Republic, weakening the Pious Deer's control. At the same time, Alsakan diplomats arrived on Ossus and persuaded the Order to cease their exile and join them against the Pious Deer. Following this, the Jedi worked with the Alsakans to create a split among Pious Deer's followers, encouraging a hidden heresy whose supporters were branded as the Renunciates. During the Renunciation in 10,967 BBY, these religious heretics declared themselves, sparking a terrible civil war. This chaos allowed the weakened Pious Deer Republic to be attacked by a wide anti-Pious Deer coalition, headed by the Jedi. Despite the civil war, the Pious Deer still had a substantial fleet of ships. But the war would be won when the Bureau of Ships and Services seeded the Pious Deer fleet with a rogue navicomputer code, causing most of its fleet to get lost in hyperspace. Many of their ships would be stuck in the depths of uncharted space, unable to restart their engines and dooming them forever. After the Battle of Uqueen, which saw the last of the Pious Deer fleet defeated, and Supreme Chancellor Contupex XIX captured, the Crusades finally came to an end. The Republic's government was then taken over by the Jedi, with Grandmaster Bail Ductavis taking the role as Chancellor. All Pious Deer members were expelled from positions of authority, including the Galactic Senate, and the religion died out over the course of a few generations. The next 2,000 years were known as the Ductavis era. This era was relatively peaceful, and saw the Republic continue to expand outward. Most planets would join the Republic peacefully, although some would resist. The most devastating conflict of this period was between the relatively small Kumari Empire and the Republic. The Kumari utilized kamikaze battleships traveling at relativistic speeds to obliterate entire planets, ensuring that the war was devastating despite the Republic's overwhelming victory. After this short war, Republic scientists and engineers began working on planetary shields, which soon became widespread across the galaxy, severely diminishing the influence of genocidal empires and warlords. In 9000 BBY, the Rhyanitus era began. This era was possibly the most prosperous the Republic had ever seen, owed largely to an unlikely chancellor. On the edge of Hutt space, a string of mining worlds had broken away from the remnants of Hutt control. The administrator of these worlds was known as Blotus the Hutt, a wise but ambitious leader. He saw great opportunity in working with the Republic, and so, for the first time, a part of Hutt space joined the Republic. Blotus soon became a very popular senator, and eventually rose to the position of Chancellor. His 250-year-long reign saw massive economic development, and the further expansion of the Republic to new worlds. After his death, he would be fondly remembered as one of the Republic's most effective chancellors, helping to break his species' negative stereotypes. This era of peace ended abruptly with the breakout of the Waymancy Storm, a war between the Republic and a group of machine-worshipping fanatics that were violently opposed to the Republic's expansion. This group, known as the Signatories of Waymancy, had spent many millennia secretly improving the Republic's technology and weaponry, hoping to use this in an ambush against the Republic. But despite this, the Republic absolutely steamrolled this group. stealing their technology and using it to further increase their military might. The Republic and their Jedi allies reigned supreme across the galaxy, and it seemed as though they could never again be truly challenged. However, they couldn't be more wrong. In next week's video, we will explore the rise of a strange Jedi cult known as the Sith, an order which would almost bring the Jedi and the Republic to its knees.